Alright everyone, welcome to Misericorde Volume 2, White Wool and Snow. Let me tell you guys, I've been waiting for this sequel to come out after I found out about it just recently, and yeah. I also played through the secret scene of the previous installment, and I gotta say I was pretty surprised because I wasn't expecting that. And here we are, I'm excited again. Oh my god, I'm looking forward to seeing what adventures the sisters are gonna go through this time, and hopefully uncover some more secrets that, we didn't really get to really truly dive into in the previous installment. So, if anything else, guys, hope you join me on this one. It's gonna be another fun journey, fun ride, and yeah. With that said, what are we waiting for? Let's go. Oh, hello again. Hiya. Excited? Ready to read about some truly miserable people? I'm as eager as you are, but there are a couple of important orders of business to attend to. First of all, Misericorde Volume 2, White Wool and Snow is a story for grown-ups. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, but a reminder of what to expect is always nice, yeah? It might have been a while since you last checked in on the Limb Barrow. Would you like a quick recap of what's happened to poor Hedwig so far? Nah, we can just go in through. Wonderful. We can move on then. Between you and me, I don't think Hedwig made much meaningful progress last time. Thank God there aren't any encroaching metatextual elements. Could you imagine having to keep track of it all? Anyway, I think the powers that be already showed you some content warnings. Suffice to say, it's a bit bloody and gory here and there. Plus, there's a few tits. Maybe even some bush. I forget. It's all very tasteful, I promise. So, if you're playing this in polite company or perhaps streaming it to your friends on some godforsaken web platform, spare yourself an awkward moment and toggle the censorship on, yeah? Yes, let's do that. Censor images of nudity and violence, yes. No judgment. You can change this at any time in the preference menu if you change your mind. Oh, and do keep in mind that this setting does not cross between devices. Make sure it's set to your desired choice when swapping. With that said, enjoy. Man, if I didn't get that secret scene, I wouldn't know who this character was. Oh man, I technically still don't. Ah, hello there. You're just in time. I'm prepared, at last, to share more with you. But first, I must share something important. Something that will, I think, help color the story you are about to hear. I'm not a real person. Alright? This is not a complaint. It's scarcely even a problem. It is simply a fact about me, no different from the color of my hair. I am not a real person. Certainly others can hear me, the way one might hear the voice of a normal person. You can hear me now, naturally. I suppose I am visible, as well, or at least I was, when I roamed freely outside of this cell. But I cannot be heard in any meaningful way, or seen in any sense that matters. My words do not carry any sort of staying power, nor can I be seen in a way that changes the shape of the world. I am not a landmark in people's lives. Instead, I rank myself as some lesser being, closer to a cat or an insect, perhaps than a member of mankind. I lack whatever it takes to make real connections with other people. It took me a while to learn this. I cannot remember exactly when the realization started forming. It might well have been when I hit my head catching Flora. For a long time, this knowledge made me ache. Now, it brings me some measure of peace. The charge that I was given by the superior certainly did not help, but I dare say that I would have felt this way had I been born a princess or a soldier or a king. A person needs a whole soul, and mine could at best be described as damaged. I do not linger in anyone's thoughts the way someone that matters to them might. I am not sought out. I cross no minds, and am carried in no hearts. I take up space, but I am not really here. Perhaps I have never truly been anywhere. I am not a real person. That was interesting. Almost like a riddle. Do you find my outlook gloomy? I suppose it does sound rather grim. But it is useful. If I had any shame left or any reputation to uphold, I might not be able to tell you the rest of this story. I have thought carefully about how to present all of this to you. I realized whilst we were apart that I could probably just skip straight to the end, summarize my life outside this cell in a sentence or two. But you wouldn't want that, would you? I hope not, because the experience of sharing this all with you is perhaps the closest I have come to feeling like a whole, real person in my entire life. I should like to savor that feeling. Finally, I feel that I must emphasize that this is a story built out of memories. Details like cardinal directions, the time of day it was at any given moment. As each day goes by, my certainty of any of these things slips away just a little. And I was supposed to be a chronicler. Ha! I am glad that I get to tell this all to you now, while there is a chance it all still forms some kind of shape. Now then, I believe that when we parted last, I was flat on my back, staring up into the dark rain clouds. On top of the wall. I have no time to waste. Excuse me. I remember thinking to myself. The rain was pounding against my face so hard that it was difficult to keep my eyes open. I had to fight to resist retreating behind my eyelids once more. I heaved Flora's limp form above me and rose to my feet, carefully draping her over my shoulder. Her legs dangled freely and pressed into my stomach. Alright, I remember this scene. As I took some steps forward, I could feel something sharp jutting out of her thigh. Ah, that's right, I remember. I tried my best not to think about it, but images of gore began swirling in my mind. I suppressed the rising sickness in my throat by telling myself that a protruding leg was preferable to whatever state a mauling from that ghastly creature would have left Flora in. It was so dark out here. Had I not been carrying Flora, I felt like I could have reached out and touched the rain cloud. In fact, the fog was so dense, the rain was so violent that I wondered if I was walking right through one. I suppose I should have been thankful for the weather, because the reflections lining the corners of the edges of the walls ahead outlined the way forward. Nonetheless, the stone was slick. My shoes were not up to the task. I carefully carried Flora forward in a direction that I assumed, prayed, would lead us around the outer wall to some stairs. I was right. It was not that long ago that I had struggled with a flight of stairs in front of Catherine. I smiled grimly as I tested this top step with my wet shoe. If only she could have seen me. Carefully. Carefully. One step at a time. 2 feet on each step before moving to the next. That was the only way to keep Flora steady. I wondered what her leg looked like under all that cloth. By what thread of flesh was it still attached? I tried to put this grisly thought out of my mind. It was rather difficult when I could feel Flora's shoes knock against me in rhythm with every stair I descended. One after the other. One immediate. One worryingly late. Over and over. At the rate I was moving, the staircase might as well have gone down forever. It was so dark that I began to wonder if I was descending at all. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the path ahead briefly. I was so startled that I almost slipped. The gravel of the eastern courtyard was comforting, at the very least. But I did not feel relief for long. Another sheet of lightning revealed that I was not alone. Wait, I think I see it. Excuse me. The monster was back. It did not notice me at first, I think. It stood gazing upward into the clouds for a moment before its gaze, if it could be labeled such, slowly turned to me. Oh, look at that. Is that a wolf? I can't even tell. Looks like one. A few wisps of smoke drifted outward from its gnarled face. I could still barely make it out in the darkness, but the moonlight rendered it enough detail to scare me into inaction. It was truly hideous, and it moved unnaturally. I could hear it wheezing as it stood in place. I felt as if it were eyeing me up and down, although I could not be sure that there was anything at all in its bony eye sockets. If I had any doubts left, the smell made it clear the beast was really there. The stench was overpowering. This must be what hell smells like, I thought. This is flesh seared by eternal fire, animated and standing upright in front of me, weighing whether to drag me along with it, back down to where we both belong. I realized my fingernails were digging into Flora's skin. I dared not budge. Just looking at this unearthly demon took more willpower than I had available. It was like staring into a dark sun. We stood there for I don't know how long. I do know that I moved first. I took one cautious step backward. It felt just as leaden, just as impossible as the first step I had taken over the threshold between my cell and the outside world. At least this time, I was leaving something terrible behind. The monster did not react. I took another step back, and another. Darkness slipped over the creature's face and I wheeled around to run away. Flora's twisted leg kicked into my thigh all the way back to the cloister. By the time I made it to the Superior's office, I was worried that I was too late. Running away meant that I had to travel back around to the western courtyard near the garden and back into the cloister from there. I slammed my fist against the Superior's door as best I could, with Flora draped over my shoulders. Superior! The door finally jerked open, and I was met by a furious face. What is the meaning of this? Do you have any idea how late... My God, what happened to Flora? She was attacked. I found her in the hallway near my cell. Attacked? She ushered us in and shut the door behind us. Attacked by who? By what is the question I should think? You mean to tell me an animal did this? I set Flora down gently on the floor. She groaned as soon as her shattered leg touched the ground. I can feel it now. It wasn't an animal. It was a monster. Come now. It's true. I was wandering the halls when it leapt out at me. You're delirious. She's telling the truth. I saw it. Well, Flora was telling some sort of truth. Wandering the halls was not quite right, but now was not the time to quibble. It chased us outside. Although the big door upstairs is what injured her. The Superior rubbed her face and groaned. I've been meaning to get that bloody thing fixed. I will not believe a monster chased you there, however. Monster? Ghost? Devil? Call it whatever you like, but something was there. Catherine and her cohorts used to love dressing up to give visitors a fright. Surely it was just someone in disguise. Lord knows nobody listens to me when I tell them no pranks, no hazing. I've seen Eustace's pranks, and this was no practical joke. It was taller than any of the women here. And it had the head of a goat, too. The head of a goat? Flora groaned again. We need to deal with this first. Stay with her. Make sure she stays awake. I'll go and fetch Moira. The Superior exited the room swiftly. I reached out to grasp one of Flora's hands. She was cold and clammy. Well, yeah, dude, her leg is busted. I reached to peek down at her leg and inhaled sharply when I saw that her robe was glistening. It was soaked in blood. You know what? I'm kind of thankful I did censor it, because for all I know, the uncensored version would show more, and I don't want to see that. In the shadows. What? Don't tell the Superior. Don't tell her what? What do you mean, the shadows? I know it can't be one of you lot. I was so far away from the dorms when it happened. My old cell? Tell me exactly what happened. There's nothing else to tell. That thing lives in the dark. Darcy always talked about hauntings, but I never believed her. But then, I saw it lurking outside the Superior's window. That window. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I gripped her slimy hand a little harder as I tensed up. I dared not turn around to look at the window behind me. But even then, I couldn't be sure. I thought it could have been anything, a trick of the light. But now I know for sure. This place is haunted. That thing lives in the shadows, and I've seen it. What on earth do you mean? And when am I supposed to tell the Superior? Please don't tell her. You can't tell her that I saw. You saw? The Superior returned with Moira in tow. Oh no. Hedwig found her wandering the halls. Excuse me, guys. This always happens. I don't know why. Unfortunately, it sounds like that godforsaken upstairs door slammed shut on her leg. No! What a nightmare. Moira crouched down to examine Flora's leg. She lifted the young woman's back robe carefully and inhaled through her teeth at whatever she saw. You poor thing. She stood back up and looked at the Superior gravely. I'm going to need to make a splint and a crutch. As soon as possible. By all means. What do you need? Wood, twine. I assume we don't have any existing metal splints or leg plates, do we? None that I'm aware of. We're not known for our smithing. Leg plates? Like from a suit of armor? Indeed. I can make a splint out of wood, but it might not set the bone just right. If there's anything that would fit to the contour of the leg better and actually compress things, that would be better. We should wake Eustace. There's a suit of armor in the library storage room. Good thinking, Hedwig. Oh, you are clever. The more closely I can set the bone, the better chance we have at avoiding amputation. Oh, thank God. I don't even like the sound of that word. Flora wailed from the floor. I don't want to lose my leg. I'll do everything I can. And look on the bright side. It wouldn't be your whole leg. Oh, that's not any better, trust me. Just about half or so. Which half? The bottom half. Suppose that was a stupid question. Try not to stress about it. Who's stressed? It would have been very funny if things weren't quite so horrible. You've done enough here tonight, Hedwig. You can head back to bed. But I insist. Moira, stay here with Flora while I collect Eustace and get that leg plate for you. Hedwig, walk with me. I'll escort you back to the dormitory. She stormed out of the room so quickly I had no time to object. I followed after her. Well, looks like we're gonna have a little private session again. A ghost, Hedwig? Superior, A sister was attacked right in front of you and you didn't think to unmask the assailant? That isn't fair. If you had seen it... A ghost did not just attack you. A ghost did not kill Catherine. Maybe not, but something otherworldly most certainly did just attack Flora and I. I don't see how the two events have to be related. The Superior wheeled around on me on top of the stairs and spoke in a harsh, raspy whisper. Of course they're related. Of course whoever attacked Flora is the same person who killed Catherine. Who else would it be? Why else would it happen? I don't know. Just how superstitious are you? Dare I ask it? But how stupid are you? You saw no monster. The darkness addled your mind. Not to mention this darkness. It's a wonder you saw anything at all. We stood there on the stairs for a moment. I had nothing to say. There were tears welling in my eyes that I wish I could hide. I am sorry. I should not have said you were being stupid. But it is clear that all of this is being done to undermine my authority. All of this is because I have been too lax, too forgiving with all of them. Of course someone would be attacked while the bishop is here. Somebody's trying to hurt me. Punish me. Oh yeah, make this about you, why don't you, Superior? And the only people who would care to do that would be those under my charge. Someone dissatisfied for whatever reason with my leadership. That could be anyone. That had been a mistake. Superior slowly drew herself up to her full height and glowered at me. Speak. I just mean, over the course of my time here, I think I've heard every sister express some sort of discontent with you. Really now. Surely it just comes with the territory. I think you've said as much before. Any specific grievances? None leap to mind. Just general dissatisfaction. Grousing. All I meant was, if that's a thread you want me to follow in my investigation, it might not narrow things down. What have you narrowed down? Catherine behaved suspiciously. Angela thinks she could do a better job than me. If it weren't for the fact that I know she didn't kill Catherine the second, I would suspect her. But go on. What else have you pieced together? Have you been doing your job, or have you just been killing time? Well, the bishop is already here. I'd hoped to stall him long enough to give you enough time to complete your inquisition, but now... She sighed, turned away. I don't know what to do. Something was bothering her deeply. I wish I knew what, but I hazarded a guess. Have you been into the cellars tonight? No, why? I was just wondering if it had been tidied to your liking, since there was, that party down there the other night, and you were part of it. Yes. I thought it would be a good opportunity to gather information. Of course you did, Hedwig. She turned away and continued up the stairs. Come along then, no time to waste. I scurried behind her as we entered the dorms to wake Eustace. Superior rapped her knuckle on the door next to mine. There was no answer. She knocked again, looking irritated. There was a sound of hinges creaking, but it was not the door we were standing in front of. The door to Darcy's room, closest to the fireplace, had opened. Looking for me? Yes. Are we interrupting a late night chat? It's no trouble. What's wrong? She had shot me a shrewd expression. Sister Flora had injured her leg. You found her? Indeed. That's good news. No. Not completely good news. She's really hurt. She looked straight at me once more. Yes, it is. Although I will be happier after someone tells me what actually happened. What do you need me for? She's hurt. Her leg. Quite badly. Moira's the surgeon. Moira is attending to the wound as we speak, but she needs a brace for the bone. I'm still not... She walked towards us briskly, pushing between us to enter her room. After a moment, she re-emerged holding a ring of keys. I can guess. She brushed past me on her way out of the dormitory. The superior and I followed. Eustace stood in front of the library door, squinting at the key ring and shuffling them back and forth. The way the key splayed out in her hand reminded me of Adela's tarot cards. It's much too big. Excuse me? The boot. Flora's is very small. I think Moira said we just need something sturdy to hold her leg together. I said this faster than I could think about the mechanics of what I was suggesting. As I imagined watching two pieces of bone falling into place, I retched. Mercifully, nothing came with it. The door opened and Eustace almost shot inside faster than a superior's candlelight could illuminate the room. You wait there. I beg your pardon. Eustace ignored her, too focused on her keys to again notice the superior's warning tone. She disappeared into the artifact room. The superior and I waited in silence for a moment. There was suddenly a crash of metal and stone. Is everything alright in there? Yes. One moment. Do you need my light? Eustace reappeared holding two cylindrical pieces of metal. She handed them to me forcefully, then darted back out the candlelight once more. Is there something else you need? Eustace? Eustace's voice was distant, no doubt buffeted by bookshelves. No. I'm just checking something I remember needed doing while I'm here. Well, that's not suspicious at all. How convenient, right? Her system at work. That's right. You can take that to Flora. I'll be right behind you. I looked down at the pieces of armor Eustace had thrust into my hands. They were a lot smaller than I had been imagining. Are these the right pieces? These aren't leg plates, are they? They're the vambraces. It should be better for a girl of Flora's size. You should run ahead and take them to her. That seems wise. Flora's legs are decidedly smaller than a man's of war's. But... Eustace suddenly emerged out of the darkness looking harried and annoyed. Why are you still here? I said I'd be right behind you. Alright, I'm not liking her tone again. I'm remembering why I didn't like her that much. She's a little too, she's a little too strict. Like, not superior strict, but very cautious and paranoid. Eustace practically sprinted out of the library onto the landing, beckoning for us to follow her with an impatient wave. Time is of the essence, surely. Of course. I nodded, not wanting to cause any trouble. But I did crane my neck to try and catch a glimpse of the side room Eustace had retrieved the armor from before the candlelight subsided. The door was shut, of course. When we returned to the Superior's office, Moira was crouched next to Flora, holding her hand. I was relieved to see that things had somewhat improved in our absence. I'd been dreading the worst in the back of my mind. Took you long enough. Some of Flora's old spirit was returning then. Those are... arm pieces, yes. I thought it might be a better fit. Ooh. Well, she took a piece of armor from Eustace and appraised them. Definitely a good fit, circumference-wise. But too short. Oh dear. It was good thinking, but if you could go and retrieve the leg instead, we can reshape them. Reshape? We can heat them up and bash them together a bit. Yes, I think that would work. We have a workshop. Of course we do. But that is a tall order. You know how to do that, Eustace? Well, no, I don't. Not in practice, but I know the principles. It should be rather simple. Superior pinched the bridge of her nose. This night is getting out of hand. Do we have the tools to do it? Would the boot not be simpler? We would have to do this to the boot too. In fact, it probably would require more reshaping. Do we want to do this, or do we want Flora to lose her leg? I like how she avoided completely going back to get the armored leg. for her. She decided to just say we should reshape it. She's very informed on that point. Like she doesn't want to give the armor away at all. I don't know. Let's try it. Eustace, it'll be simple. Let's try it. We have to consider that this armor isn't ours, you know. We've been entrusted it. What does that matter? Everyone looked my way. If there's something we can do, we should do it. Even if it is just a hunch. I cannot believe we'd even consider otherwise. No? Am I wrong? Of course you're not wrong. Forgive me, Flora. We'll try everything we can. Thank God. What do we need to do? Carry her to the workshop first of all. We'll need to start a fire. Find some tools. A hammer. Hedwig, you'll help me carry her? Of course. I was not sure I had much more strength left, but I couldn't possibly say no. I think we'll need a lot of fuel. It sounds like this is going to be an ordeal. Shall I wake the others? Yes. Or rather, no, let me do that. You help these two. The Superior looked affronted by this direct order, but did not object. Well, see you all there. She jogged out of the office. Moira and I made to carry Flora while the Superior held the heavy door open for us. Rather bossy sometimes, isn't she? Nobody could replace you, Superior. Superior Eustace? I'd kill myself. Flora! Careful, you'll drop her. I was only joking. Sorry. Flora has a great sense of humor. Even in this situation. It's crazy. After we made it out of the doorway, the Superior moved past us and began to lead us to the cloister out toward the courtyard. We were close to where we had prepared to ride down to the village. She opened a wide wooden door to the side of the archway's gatehouse that I had not entered yet. It was pitch dark save for the Superior's candlelight until she held the flame up to a few sconces around the room. As the torches flickered to life, the light revealed gnarled metal tools and bits of broken furniture scattered around the workshop. The floor was covered in sawdust and ash. Chains and hooks were hanging from the ceiling, no doubt farming implements that I was too sheltered to recognize. Set her down somewhere flat. There you go. Moira and I shuffled into the room, carrying Flora between us. In the center of the room was a cylindrical stone structure with a wooden cover. It would have to do for now. We set Flora down as gently as we could. She winced as her legs settled on the wooden surface. Is she bleeding? I actually don't know. Don't think so. Moira hiked up Flora's robe without warning. I nearly fainted at the sight. Oh, thank goodness it's censored. There was not much blood miraculously, but that might have made it all the more grisly. Her calf was swollen, turned the wrong way and purple. There was a large bump and... I could gloss over this part, I suppose, but it feels wrong. I saw it after all. Don't worry. It won't last much longer. It was not good to look at. I drew in a sharp breath and turned away. Moira, however, wasted no time assessing the injury. Not good. We might need to drain it before we do anything else. Drain? Blood's supposed to stay inside. Not all welled up in your calves, it isn't. Flora let out a guttural groan. Despair was sinking in. Don't... It's fine. It'll heal up on its own. It most certainly will not. Should I go get some more help? That might be a good idea. Eustace had been marching around the room surveying the tools on offer. Think this would make a good flame? She held up a long saw with orange-flecked teeth. Flora let out a half-laugh, half-hiccup. Fuck off. If you want to make yourself useful, Eustace, go wake everybody up. And have Darcy bring my tool bag, please. It should be under my bed. And ask her to bring my dwale. She might have lying around. Eustace opened her mouth to protest, but Moira shot her a grim look that I wouldn't have thought her capable of. Of course. On it. Sorry. She bustled out of the workshop quickly. Hedwig, could you run to the kitchen and find me the biggest bowl you can? Bowl? So the blood has somewhere to go, silly. Good heavens. Oh, Hurry! I scampered out the door and ran toward the kitchens. The rain had lessened somewhat since I had been up on the wall, but it was getting quite cold in my damp robes. I was shivering by the time I made it to the kitchen door and fumbled my way inside. Bowl. I squinted to try and get a better look at the cooking implements around the room. The moonlight was enough to see outside, but here it was, frustratingly dark. I should have brought one of the torches the Superior had lit in the workshop. Finally, I spotted it. A big wooden bowl poking out of the shelf, the one Eustace had served us gaily out of. I just knew Eustace would have something to say about me selecting the same bowl, but there was no time left to agonize over it. I stepped forward and... oh, the cat. Sharp claws swiped at my wrist. I yelped and tumbled forward into the shelf. My forehead knocked against a pan handle on my own, bringing the whole shelf of cookware down on top of me. I lay on the cool floor for a minute, feeling more embarrassed than injured. Wow, look at that cat. The cat had lunged at me, stepped forward on its little paws and nuzzled my face as if we were best of friends. I suppose I just startled it. Or perhaps its mood were as erratic as mine had been of late. I'm alright. I just need a moment. The stone floor was oddly comforting. I was reminded of times I had for a change of pace laid down on the cool floor of my cell. Most recently, I'd flattened into the position to reach for a brush to wipe up a pile of my own dark sick. But there had been happier times where I'd simply pressed myself against the cold floor. Can you keep a secret? This is mortifying to admit, but sometimes, when I finished my work I'd set out for myself, I would disrobe entirely and lay face down on the stone tile. It felt refreshing. That was wrong with me. During the hot summer months especially, the stone would retain some sort of natural chill it always has, and I would try and absorb all of it through my skin. And when I had taken it all, and the floor had warmed up, I would roll sideways onto my back and do it all over again. It was such an odd sensation, What? I can hear you giggling, you know. And here I was thinking I could trust you to be mature. But for what it's worth, I wasn't giggling. No, you're right, it is rather strange. But I'd rather talk about something pleasant and odd than blood, which we're about to see a lot of, by the way, so prepare yourself. The cat meowed at me again. Very well. I suppose I can't spend all night down here, can I? I pulled myself to my feet. The bowl had come to rest on my head like some bulbous wooden crown, and still more cookware clattered to the floor as I stood. I left a real mess, but there was no time to waste. I took the bowl and sprinted out of the kitchens back toward the workshop. I arrived to quite the commotion. The whole abbey was attempting to cram into the workshop. Angela and Charity were standing on the threshold looking inside pensively. Angela locked eyes with me as I jogged up to the doorway with the bowl. I tried to avoid her, but it was no use. They've been waiting for you. Couldn't find one big enough. I can see that. I'm not sure that is big enough. I ignored this and pushed through the doorway. I went a crowd around Moira, who had draped Flora over the table. I took some comfort in how rattled most of the other women here seemed. At the very least, I was not the only person who had a hard time looking at Flora's injury. This was the biggest I could find. That'll do. Thank you. As I handed the bowl to Moira, I could see Eustace open her mouth to protest and shake her head. Should I get a different one? No. No, there's no time. Is this yours? We'll wash it. Oh, good. Moira was already thumbing through a leather bag full of sharp-looking tools. Let's see. Lancet. Oh. Eustace, hold her shoulder steady, would you? Eustace obliged. Flora looked like she wished to protest, but her energy was fading. Now, Hedwig, I need you to hold that bowl steady while I drain the wound. Can you do that for me? I think someone else might do a better job. We don't have time to bicker about it. Nobody wants to, but somebody has to, and you're here with it in your hands. Shall we? Yes. Moira beamed at me, then rummaged in her bag for a wooden stick. She held it close to Flora's face. It reminded me of the way Darcy had held up bits of grass to watch the sheep eat. Bite down on this for me, please. It'll help with the pain. Are we out of dwale, Darcy? Yes. Oh. Please don't say oh like that. Moira took this opportunity to stick the wooden bin to Flora's mouth. There you go. Tears were welling up in Flora's puffy eyes. God, I feel bad for her right now. Damn, why her? Hedwig, the bowl. Of course. I got down on one knee and propped the lip of the bull under Flora's leg. I was trying my best not to look at the bulging ankle too closely. I must have aimed poorly because I could feel Moira repositioning the bull as soon as I set it down. Good. I'm gonna do this as fast as I can so the pain doesn't drag on. Does that sound good? This was met with an indecipherable moan from Flora. You've broken this leg before, haven't you? It'll be alright. You're strong. As soon as I'm satisfied with how it's drained, I need someone to bandage the wound. Margaret, can you do the honors? She rushed a little. I don't think I'm the woman for the job, sorry. Someone else then. No time to hesitate, come on. I'll do it. Adela stepped forward, looking stern and determined. Moira gave her an approving nod and handed her some white fabric from her doctor's bag. Are you ready? I'm ready. Hedwig. Ready. I'm gonna count down from 5. 5. 4. 3. I heard a muffled shriek and the sound of liquid running down the side of the bowl I was holding. I bit the inside of my cheek and gripped the sides of the bowl as hard as I could. I didn't want to disappoint Moira, and I certainly didn't want to hurt Flora's chances of recovery. I wanted to help, as ghastly as the process was. Yeah, went early. Flora spat the bit out of her mouth. You went early. Oh, doctor's trick. Sorry about that. The anticipation is the worst part. No, it's not. I knew she was going to do it early too. Blood stopped pouring into the bowl. I could see that Adela was wrapping the leg in the bandages Moira had provided. Moira, this bone. If I wrap the bandage tightly, it will. That's right. Now's the hard part, I'm afraid. But you're doing so well, Flora. There's more? Lots more. Adela, this is going to be grim work, but just imagine that Flora is, I don't know, your fellow man on the battlefield. You're going to have to get the leg back into the right position on the bone so the bone can heal back together. I can do it. Don't worry about me. I'd never seen Adela sweat like this. Wet hair was poking out from underneath her cap as she and Moira guided the bandage around Flora's leg. I walked around stupidly, holding the bowl of blood, unsure where to put it. I could hear a real commotion behind me that I was very glad I couldn't see. Flora, do not kick. You're gonna make it worse. I'm not trying to. Someone hold their legs down, please. The last thing I need is Flora kicking her whole foot off. Everyone gave me a wide berth as I carried the bowl to a table at the side of the room and set it down as gently as I could. I hunched over at the moment. The wailing and moaning and gnashing playing out behind me was too much to bear. However, I steeled myself, reasoning that nobody needed to deal with me adding more disgusting bodily fluids for them to clean up. I scrunched my eyes shut for a moment and tried to push the sounds of surgery out of my mind. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to see Margaret, looking a little worse for wear. Me too. Oh God, is that the blood? Let's go over here. She pulled me aside to the corner of the room. This is a little rougher than last time. Last time? When she broke her leg climbing the wall. That still wasn't pretty to look at, but this. What happened? I heard a sound in the middle of the night and found her. Thank goodness for that, at least. Was your leg already broken? No, it all happened so fast. It was that door. The big one that never closes properly? Yes. Goodness. I suppose it can actually close properly then. I was not sure if this was meant to be a joke or not. I'm relieved you found her. Good work, Hedwig. Thank you. Did she tell you what she was doing? Where she'd been? Not a word. I heard a sound. I found her and then... Bang. Door gets her on the way out. I understand. I was panicking inside. This is strictly speaking not a lie, but I was omitting a rather large detail. I could justify this to myself somewhat. The ghost was Flora's story to tell. However, I realized as soon as I confirmed Margaret's order of events that Flora and I heading outside to the wall was a rather strange path to take. Her and Catherine used to walk the walls talking about this and that, so she was probably hoping to do the same with you. That's good. I was so worried when she was missing that we weren't doing enough for her, but hopefully, this all will be one big misunderstanding. Keep the drawing lessons up, yeah? She'll need it after this. Of course. Right. That should just about do it for the bandages. Now then, time to make a splint. We need to move Flora, I think. She looked around with a furrowed brow, then pointed next to me and Margaret. Wheelbarrow. There was indeed a wooden contraption next to us. A wooden box with two handles, and a precarious looking wheel attached to it. Under and rolled it back to the crowd. Margaret extracted it from the other garden tools it was buried under and rolled it back into the crowd. Eustace and Margaret lifted a whimpering Flora into the barrel carefully, with Adela and Moira supporting her leg. After she was deposited into the safety as she could be, Eustace retrieved the vambraces and held them up for all to see. So, I have an idea that I need everyone to take seriously, and I will likely need everyone's help to execute. There was a murmur of approval from the gathered nuns. And you ought to help me get a fire going in the forge. I could sense every eyebrow in the room raising. That old bloomery? I can't remember the last time that thing got used. That's how you know it's been a long time. Indeed. It hasn't been fired since. Goodness. Since before I was the superior. That's not entirely true. Catherine used it a handful of times. Really now. It is true. I helped her, in fact. Excellent. In that case, Adela, I need you to help me direct people. To do this fast, we're going to need a steady supply of fuel going in. Then we need someone on the bellows, and we'll need 2 of us on the hammers. She hoisted up a blunt tool. What in God's name do we need all of this for? To make a proper splint for Flora's leg. Will that work? It has a better chance of helping than doing nothing at all. Sounds like a plan to me. I suppose I could help pass firewood. Good. Everyone began rearranging themselves around the workshop. I was surprised and suddenly felt very out of step with them. Things fell into place almost wordlessly, but I had clearly not been here long enough to understand where I fit in the natural order. Hedwig, I saw you swinging that sword in the Misericorde. Can I put you on hammer duty? Let me rephrase that. You are on hammer duty. She held the hammer out to me to handle first. I could only oblige. It was much heavier than the sword had been, and balanced very differently. After carrying it for a moment, I felt a decent enough sense of what to do with it. Adela, you take the other one. Absolutely. I took a glance down at Flora. It looked as if she was struggling to stay awake. Moira was in charge of the wheelbarrow and kept fussing with her patient's bandage. Once the fire is as hot as we can make it, I am going to put the bracers in. Then I'll put them in the middle here, open them, and then overlap the edges. That's when you'll bash them as hard as you can, as fast as you can. Rhythmically, please. Until I put the bracers back in the fire. Do you understand? I do. I was very glad she did, at least. Practice. Adela hits first, then Hedwig. Adela smashed her hammer against the oak panel and then retracted as fast as she could. I tried to follow suit, but my strike came out much slower. Again. They're trying to get the rhythm, I see. A little faster that time. Faster. I got into the flow of it. Adele and I beat out our invisible foe into a pulp with starting efficiency, and hammerheads striking at one after the other. Good. Let's get to work. The others had been working on bringing the fire up to heat behind us, passing bits of firewood in a line from a pile on the other side of the room. I suppose there was something important in putting fuel in this steadily. Personally, I would have just crammed as much wood into the forge as would fit. But I suppose that's why I was a nun and not a blacksmith. Eustace thrust the vambraces into the small slotted fireplace. Darcy pushed on a wooden handle attached to a strange bag that blew air into the furnace. Flames whipped around inside. Eustace leaned back to avoid getting singed. I could see the metal braces turning red. After a few more squeezes of air, Eustace plucked them out on the fire with her large tongue and flung them in front of Adela and I. Gingerly, Eustace overlapped the 2 pieces of armor so we could bash them together. Decide. We scrambled around the stone circle to get a better angle, then began slamming our hammers down the other lip of the mismatched armor pieces. Eustace yanked them away from us suddenly. Adela noticed in time and retracted her hammer, but I was slower on the uptake. I smashed my hammer into the wood and felt as if I had missed a stair when it didn't connect with the metal. It bounced back in such a way that surprised me, the handle bending my thumb at an awkward angle. Ow! Get ready. No mercy. I suppose I wouldn't have offered it any either. I compared my smarting thumb to Flora's snapped leg and pushed through the pain. We repeated the process over and over. I can't recall how many times. The whole convent operated as efficiently as it could to keep the fire going. Angela and the Superior joined Marta, Charity, Catherine, and Margaret on the field line while Darcy managed the bellows. Eustace moved the armor between the bloomery and our makeshift anvil, where me and Adela would pound away at the white hot metal. I don't know how many rotations we went through before I noticed that it might actually be working. It took many more after that for Eustace to be satisfied with our handiwork. All seemed to be going well until Eustace frowned. Water. We need water. First she wants fire, now she wants water. We need to dunk this in some water. Moira bolted out of the room faster than I had ever seen her move. Eustace put the vambraces back in the fire. Good work, everybody. Don't mention it. I didn't say to stop. Moira sprinted back into the room carrying a bucket of water. I was worried that it was all going to slush out the time we made to Eustace, but thankfully, it seemed to still hold enough when she arrived. Eustace pried our makeshift splint out of the forge and pushed it into the bucket. Steam billowed out suddenly, filling the whole room with a smell not unlike the blood I had collected in the wooden bowl. Panting heavily, Eustace fished around in the bucket with her tongs. With a look of triumph on her face, she let out the metal bracers, fall into the now dangerously dented well cover with a thud. It had worked. Thank God. We did it. Adela let out what I can only describe as a battle cry, holding her hammer aloft. The energy was infectious. Everyone I could see cheered and clapped as Moira tested the armor on Flora's leg with little work. It fit. Incredible. How's it feel, Flora? Nearly everyone chuckled. Poor thing. She needs some rest now, I imagine. Indeed. I couldn't help but notice that Angela had not been laughing in relief along with everybody else. Predictably, she could not let this triumphant moment pass without interjection. What happened, Flora? Come off it, Angela. Not now. Then when? I don't know. Later? She's safe, that's all that matters right now. I disagree. Enough. It is late, and we worked harder than I think any of us have in our lives to make sure Flora was safe and cared for. I am relieved Flora is still with us. Whatever happened, happened. We can deal with the particulars another time. I'm going to bed, and you all should as well. I said enough. That is enough for now. I declare Jubilee. I trust Moira can take care of Flora from here. Of course, Superior. Thank you. And thank you for all your help. Yeah. Thanks, you lot. The Superior wiped her brow and walked toward the workshop door. I really think... Jubilee! She turned on her heel and left us in the workshop. Angela looked angrier than I'd ever seen her, which should tell you something. The rest of the sisters gathered around Flora to profess their well wishes. I mean, at least she didn't lose the leg, right? The embers were tended to, and the glow of the forge lessened. I fell to my knees feeling exhausted. Sweat cascaded off my brow and down my nose. There was still a cloud of steam hanging around the whole room. The crowd moved out of the workshop as Moira wheeled Flora, still in the barrow, out into the courtyard. Are you feeling well, Hedwig? Yes, I just need a moment to catch my breath. More than fair. You finally saved the day, you know? I don't think I could have done all that hammering. Thank you. Everyone filed out of the workshop. Everyone except Angela. For a moment, she said nothing. However, after a pause, I heard an almighty crash along with a ragged yell. Angela! Oh, Hedwig. I thought you had left with the rest. Not yet. Just down here recuperating. I see. I hoisted myself to my feet. My eyes went wide. Angela had heaved the hammer, and Adela had been using at the wall, where it had lodged in the wooden slats, and knocked over several other tools that had littered the side tables. What'd you do that for? A moment of weakness, I regret. But I'm just... We just wasted so much time. Who suggested all this? Eustace, if I recall correctly. A serial overthinker commanding a battalion of underthinkers. Don't say that. We saved Flora's leg. You don't know that. Well, we certainly tried. Do you know what a splint is, Hedwig? She began prowling around the room in a primal manner. She picked up a broken bit of wood and jerked it toward me. This could be a splint. Or this. She tossed the wood aside and picked up a metal rod. This could be a splint. Anything in here could be a splint. You tie something sturdy around a broken bone to hold it in place. That's a splint. But no, that's not good enough for limb barrow. why the sharpest minds in the country reside here. No, not in Westminster, not in Gosford, or Revel, or Lindisfarne. They're all here in Limbarrow, wasting God knows how many hours reinventing the very concept of the fucking splint. She slammed the metal implement back on the table in a huff. What happened to Flora? I don't know. I just found her wandering the hall. Don't lie to me, Hedwig. Whoever it is you're protecting by hiding the truth cannot be worth it. Flora went missing at a very strange time after a very strange little party you were in attendance for. I know that you know something that you aren't telling me. You're right, Angela, I do. But I must apologize, but I cannot tell you just yet. I'd be happy to when I know that I can safely, but... Safely? Listen to yourself. Without endangering my relationship with Flora. Angela, she trusts me. And I would trust you too, but Flora made me promise to let her tell her own story first. I was not lying. Do you think I was lying? I may have embellished Flora's lucidity, but I was confident that was what she had meant when she had gripped my robe and begged me not to tell. Hedwig, you mean well, and I might even admire you for this attempt at being honorable. But we are far beyond anything honor can help us with. Hiding things from me isn't going to help Flora now. It just doesn't feel right to speak on her behalf. Answer me this. Is she in danger? Either she was the victim of some crime, or she has fallen to crime herself. Was she taken? Or did she hide of her own accord? Did something happen to her? James is imprisoned yet. Nothing beyond what you saw tonight. That big door on the second floor, it caught her leg as we were walking through it. Well, I wouldn't use the word walking. I get what you're trying to do, but she's not going to believe you if you said walking. And where was she before that? You'll have to ask her, Angela. Please. Please don't make me break any more promises. Angela sighed and wiped her brow of sweat. May I ask just one more question? You may, although I cannot promise you an answer. Are we in danger? I looked into her eyes and was shocked by her expression. She looked angry, tired, shrewd. And beneath it all, frightened. I considered the ghost. The way it had loomed in the doorway, the way its dead eyes had stared past me into the depths I could barely see myself. Yes, I think we are. She sighed deeply. Then the pact I offered you is more important than ever. Please do not keep me in the dark, Hedwig. If I am brusque, it is because I take all this very seriously, not because I am an enemy. She looked pathetic. Whether or not it was the most efficient thing or the best thing, it was a good thing. Good night, Angela. I turned to leave the workshop. I am ashamed to confess that I was fueled by a dark sense of satisfaction.
When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down.